Hello, welcome to Cat's Got Your Tongue, the podcast in association with Cats Protection. I'm your host, Adam Brown, a self-confessed cat obsessive, cat lover, very proud cat dad as well. And in each episode of this podcast, we'll be bringing you celebrity guests who love the cats just as much as we do. Now, before we meet today's celebrity guest, who we're super excited to speak to, by the way, I just want to remind you that we want to hear your funny feline stories and your cat dilemmas as well. So get in touch with the show. Tell us your cat's tales. You can give us a shout on email, pod@cats.org.uk, or you can now send us a text, or even better, you can send us a voice note on WhatsApp if you're a voice note kind of person. 07824 551 076 on WhatsApp, 07824 551 076. So let's get into it. So obviously I love cats. If you listen to this podcast, I imagine that you love cats, but there's still loads that I don't know about, and there's probably loads that you don't know about cats as well when you think about it, which is why every week on Cat's Got Your Tongue, we're joined by Cats Protection, cat behaviourist, and our resident cat expert, Nicky. Hiya, Nicky. How are you?
Hi, Adam. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. I'm really good. Have you noticed that I've got my shirt on today?
I feel like I need a closer look of it, though.
Oh, let me try and get you. Can you? Hang on. Can you see it?
Oh.
I've got my t-shirt with Ruby on.
She's beautiful.
She is the most stunning creature that's ever existed, in my humble opinion. But I mentioned to you, when we were chatting away from the podcast a while ago, Nicky, when we caught up, and I said that I was a bit worried about her because she'd started losing weight, quite noticeably as well. And not as much to me because obviously I see her every day. But and my mum and dad came round and they were like, oh, Ruby's looking a bit skinny. So I was like, yeah, and I first started to get looking a little bit unkempt, and I mean, she's like being groomed at the best of times, but she's semi-long haired, so it always looked quite sort of thick and healthy, and it started to look a little bit dishevelled. Wasn't there anything different? She was still eating fine, still drinking okay, and in the end, to be honest, I was a bit, as stupid as this sounds, I was a bit scared to take her to the vets, which I know is really irresponsible as a cat owner, but you know when you just. It's like going to the doctors sometimes. People stupidly, you worry about it.
And lots of people find that, like you say, they're worried about what the vet's going to say, but also I think just the journey and having to get them in the cat basket's really stressful for a lot of people and the cats. So it's understandable, but.
And I was like, maybe I'm not feeding her. Yeah, I was like, maybe I'm not feeding her enough. And I was like, no, I am. I definitely am. So in the end, I was like, right, I'll have to take her in. So I got an appointment. She got a checkup, and they said, look, they kind of did. Examination on her, and they were like, well, she does feel quite thin. They could feel like quite a lot of the backbone, and then they could feel some of her ribs as well. So she was really skinny. I think she'd lost. I mean, she's quite a small cat anyway. So I think she was like 3 point something kilograms, and then she'd gone down to 2 point something. So she'd lost nearly a kilogram in weight from when she last went in.
Significant.
Yeah, and it was about in the space of about 18 months or whatever. So they're like, well, there's obviously a reason behind it. So they said, we need to bring her back in for a blood test. So she had blood tests, and I had to wait for a week for the results. And I was like, Googling things, which you probably shouldn't
never
do.
I
know.
Never,
I was like, oh
never,
my God.
Never consult Dr. Google.
Awful. And I was just so worried about her. Anyway, it turns out she has got a issue with her thyroid. So is it hyperthyroid?
Yeah.
Is it?
I was literally about to guess, but I did think she might be hypothyroid.
Yeah, so I was like, well, what does that mean? Like, listen, it's treatable. So they put her on a course of medicine for a month. Yeah. And I've got to go back in for another blood test to see how that's kind of working out for her. It's only liquid as well. So if anyone, the reason I'm talking about this is because if anyone has that, I mean, Ruby's 10 now, so obviously it's quite, and they said it's really common. It's a really common thing in
particularly
cats.
in older cats.
Yeah, so
it's an overactive thyroid.
So in other words, she's eating the same amount of food, but so her metabolism's going quicker than it should. Yeah. So that's why she's not gaining weight, or she's not maintaining the weight, I suppose. So apparently this medication, it's just a liquid, so she doesn't even know she's taking it, bless her. So she's having that. So she's like a couple of weeks into that now, and fingers crossed, touch wood, she's going to be okay. But they've also said these other things that can happen then. There's potentially an operation, or there's an iodine kind of treatment.
Radioactive iodine.
Yeah.
Yes, there's lots of different treatment options available, and lots of different medications as well. So there's always something that will be suitable for lots of different types of cats.
Yeah.
It's always just worth discussing with your vet.
Is it like, and obviously you can never give someone a guarantee on these things, but is it not something that should be too worried about?
Yeah, generally speaking, I'd say it's not something to panic about. It's just something to kind of regularly monitor, discuss with your vet, and just get the right treatment option for your own cat.
Yeah,
But yeah, don't worry about it. It should be fine.
Yeah, she had extra cuddles this week anyway, so
Bless
and that's
her.
why I've got.
And what's interesting is cats tend to be hyperthyroid, whereas dogs tend to be hypothyroid and have the underactive thyroid, whereas people can be both.
Ah, right,
Not at the same time, obviously.
Okay, yeah.
One or the other, but yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, so hopefully we'll have another update on Ruby in the next couple of weeks. So fingers crossed she's going to be okay, bless her.
Get some weight gain.
Yeah, she's been having loads of treats and cuddles and, I mean, she gets that anyway, but she's been having extra. I just wanted to bring it up because I just thought if someone else is in that situation where they start noticing those changes in cats, especially older cats, because is the fur a thing as well?
The fur's part of it, for sure.
Yeah.
And they tend to be sort of, hungrier, like wanting to eat more.
Yeah.
But still losing weight, and they can be quite kind of jittery and stuff like when around food as well.
Yeah,
so
if anything,
sometimes actually get more vocal with hypothyroidism as well. So that can be one of the signs.
Yeah.
Any change in your cat from their normal behaviour, it's always worth asking the vet.
I'm so happy I did, and I know it was stupid on my part to kind of even put it off a little bit when you know something isn't right, and do you know what? I'm glad I did it. I'm so glad because it's just now I've got the the diagnosis and she's having the treatment, so hopefully
definitely
she'll be okay.
With a lot of things is people's minds go for like worst case scenario,
100%.
but the saddest thing is that if you do put things off, particularly for a long time, it sadly does just go to that last like worst case scenario sometimes, because where if you do something sooner and they could be treatment options, sometimes if you leave it so long, it's just past the point of being able to help. So
so hopefully she's on the mend, bless her.
Well, not on the mend, it's a lifelong condition.
But
so she's not it's not like she'll be cured of it, but she's being managed with medication. And she'll have a good quality of life.
Although if Ruby did have either the surgery or the radioactive iodine, that would be a cure.
Will she end up gaining weight again?
She should do. Yeah.
So
get back to her normal weight.
Yeah, bless her.
So hopefully the vets were talking to you about body condition score. So as much as like looking at weight and how much that she's lost, and that's important too. You were mentioning about like the being able to feel along the spine and like the ribs and stuff, and that's where you help decide is the cat the sort of the right weight for that particular frame of cat. Like my cat, for example, as we discussed, he's a big cat. So, if Ruby was 7 kilograms, you'd be panicking because she'd be enormous. She'd be like a big floppy balloon. But for body condition score, as long as you can feel my cat's ribs and like briefly feel the spine without too much pressure, and he's got a little waist, then he's a good weight.
Yeah. So it's again, all cats are different, aren't they? But your own cat, and if you do see a change, just take them to the vet because, like Nicky says, you don't want to leave it too long. You just got to go. I mean, it's rich of me saying that now, but now I've been in that situation and the relief that I felt when I realised what it was and it is manageable, then,
because you've been scaring yourself on the internet as well. So I know. You're probably just basically convinced, like, this is it. She's done.
Honestly, it was horrendous, honestly. So, she's getting it managed, bless her, is our Ruby. So we're going to get some more kind of questions being asked. We've got some more cat's tales to answer a little bit later on, Nicky. But before that, we've got a very special guest on the podcast. Someone we've been trying to get on the podcast for ages, and it's so good that now we're in season 2. We've finally got him on. So let's get him in, shall we? So, if you're a cat lover and you haven't heard the show before, each episode we're joined by a celebrity guest who loves cats just as much as me and probably just as much as you. And today we are so thrilled to welcome onto the podcast someone, myself and Nicky. I've been desperate to get on Cat's Got Your Tongue for a long time. Best-selling author Jane Fallon. Jane, how are you? We're so pleased that you're here with us.
I'm great. Thank you very much.
Honestly, we've been like, when we kind of had a list of like dream guests, you were right up there of people who wanted on this podcast desperately. So, thanks.
Just because I'm literally obsessed with my cat, that's why, isn't it?
Yeah.
A super gorgeous cat.
Yeah.
I do.
And we need to get into that into more detail, Jane. I mean, it's the place we always start on the podcast. Tell us a little bit about your cat. We're talking name, age, what they look like, temperament. Just kind of, this is your chance to tell us all about your cat.
Okay, so her name is Pickle. And she's nearly 8 actually, but we got her when she was 4 from a hoarding situation, kind of horrible situation like so many cats do. And this is her. Hold on, I've worn my T-shirt especially. She kind of looks like that. She is a big tabby. She's a big girl. She's not fat. She's a hefty, big, long girl. She's beautiful. And when she first came, she was incredibly shy, understandably, and we were originally fostering her, and you know how that goes. And I kind of knew that we weren't really fostering her. It was lockdown, and we'd lost our previous cat, who we'd had for 16 years, sadly, in the March. And I was just desperate for another cat in my life, desperate. So I thought I'll do the fostering. I'll say the fostering thing, because I knew that whatever cat arrived, there was no way we were going to look after her for kind of a few days or a few weeks and then let her go. So I basically said, any cat you've got that you need looking after, we'll take. And they appeared with Pickle, who was a granny, at least. Many of the cats that she was found with were her kittens or her kittens' kittens or her kittens'. Oh. And sadly, the younger generation had all kind of been interbred, and so some of the younger ones weren't too healthy. But she's just such a sweetheart. She's given what she's been through, she's so trusting. She's so sweet. She makes me laugh constantly. She has the most amazing array of expressions. And she's happy and she plays and she's just a sweetheart.
First and foremost, Jane, I've got a picture of my cat on my T-shirt as well. So yeah, that's my cat Ruby, who's just like, honestly, just it's ridiculous how much I love that cat. She is just everything to me. And also, she was a failed foster as well. So I got almost duped into like, oh, it's just a fostering situation. And then within, I'm not joking, it must have been, well, she got out of the carrier and then came over straight away to me and just like rubbed her face on me, and I was like, well, obviously we're keeping her. There's no way.
Yeah, exactly. What can you do? And I really admire the fosterers that do the job properly. One of my nieces does fostering. She does it really properly. She loves them. She tries to stay, keep a little bit of distance, and she's managed to get them all off to new homes. But I just couldn't.
And Pickle's become a bit of a name on social media as well, hasn't she? I had a little scroll through. I mean,
has 83,000 followers on Twitter.
I'm one of them. I follow. Yeah, I've been following Pickle for a long time. Yeah. So yeah, a bit starstruck actually that I'm speaking to Pickle's mum. So basically, yeah, I had a little scroll through and become like a bit of a cat celebrity, really, hasn't she, in a way?
She has a bit. It's totally gone to her head. Yeah, she has, and I think. But do you know what? I think more than ever, people want a happy place to go to on social media, and I find that I feel that myself, and I find that a lot with animal accounts. And she has a whole world. Her favorite toy is a taco that we already had, that someone had sent us, that our previous cat had no interest in whatsoever. And Pickle picked it out, immediately obsessed. And someone else has set up, it's not us, people think it's us, someone else has set up an account for the taco, Mr. T.
Yeah, I'm following that as well.
Yeah, and it's my favourite account on social media by a mile. He has like 9,000 followers. Someone set up an account for her lemon. She has a lemon toy that she loves. You following them? Her towel has an account. None of them anything to do with us at all.
Some of the highlights just from, Pickle's social media kind of exploits. I mean, what was the food-related theft incident as well? Tell us a little bit more about that, Jane.
Because of where she came from, obviously there were loads of cats in the place and a dog, and they didn't give them the proper nutrition. They fed them dog food because it was cheaper, and obviously cats being carnivores, dog food's not great enough for them. And so she obviously had to compete and fight for food her whole life. She is, God love her, obsessed with food. She's obsessed. And I've tried all sorts of things to kind of calm her down. When we first got her, I would put food in front of her and she would just hoover it straight in, and then she'd throw it straight up. So I started feeding her in 3 little bunches. Every meal had 3 courses. So I'd be like, here's your starter, here's your main course. And that was much better. And we've got that down to 2 courses now, so that's a lot better. But her constant fixation is food. So we were watching the TV the other night and I heard noise, and I thought, oh, Pickle's just jumped off something. And then I heard another noise. And I turned around and she'd managed to get one of the kitchen cupboards open, which are quite tight. She'd got a box of sachets of food out of the cupboard, and then she'd got a sachet out of the box. And she was digging her tooth into it and getting into it. And she'd had her dinner already. And I don't quite know what to do about it. You know, we're very careful with what she eats. I weigh out all her dry food and everything, but you can't take your eyes off anything for a second.
I mean, Nicky, that might be a good opportunity for you to kind of, explain a little bit about ways that, because obviously if cats are coming from, a background like the situation that Pickle came from, their relationship with food is probably quite different to a cat that hasn't had that sort of tough start.
Definitely. And it's the same for a lot of stray cats that we see as well. So I'd say the good news is that it does generally get better with time. I know that it takes time to, for that, but so that really helps. And also what you're doing with like the staggered feeding, that's brilliant. Also, I can see that Adam's eyes light up and think, oh, my cat Ruby needs to have like 3 courses.
Yeah,
I think you're really inspired. I'm like, another thing I can add to my list of things to do for Ruby. Yep. But no, I mean, cats are designed to eat little and often, so it works much better for the average cat, let alone a cat that's had a difficult start. There are different diets available, so from your vets. So, for example, one that's like a satiety type diet where it makes them feel fuller for longer. Sometimes that can help. It can also help to sort of moderate blood sugar levels so that they're not sort of doing like this. So that could be part of it. And then there's different sorts of feeding enrichment where you've got like sort of slow down bowls, as they're called, where they've got different bits that's harder to eat. That said, for a cat that's had difficulty having access to food, you don't want them to get too frustrated.
Yeah, so I worry that would stress her out, those ones.
Yeah, exactly.
I
know. So I think it's one of those things where you sort of build up the complexity really slowly at a pace that she's able to cope with. And obviously every cat's different. And then sort of working from there and trying to just, I guess, making food times a bit more fun. But you can still do like hiding bits around the house with the dry food. But I think, like I say, you're already doing great with her. So yeah. And also all the management stuff you're doing is amazing as well. Like so many people miss that stage and then it's really tough. So
yeah, it is tough. It is tough. And to get back to the original question, so I made a board. I made a food instant board, like you see builders have boards, 1 day without an accident or 0 days without an accident. So she has a food, how many days without food related theft incidents? On 4 at the moment.
Oh, bless her.
Jane, I want to just take things back a little bit. Have you always been a cat person?
Yeah, well, I've always been an animal person.
Right.
Any animal. I was obsessed when I was a kid, literally obsessed with any animal that came my way. And yeah, cats have always sort of been my primary thing. But I grew up with a cat and a dog. We got them on the same day. And we had them from when I was 3 till like 18, 19, somewhere around there. So I had a big ginger boy growing up called Sandy. He was very placid, now I come to think about it, in a household with 5 kids and a dog. And I've always thought, because people always say to you, you're a dog person or a cat person, and I kind of go both, everything. But I 100% know that the answer to the question, if you could only have one animal in your life for the rest of your life, one type of animal, what would it be? It would be a cat. I can't imagine living without a cat. Yeah,
I'm like that now. Honestly, people say it to me, I said, there's no way now I'll always have a cat. I just can't. It's just, and my sort of like story with cats is that I've had Ruby 4 years, but I'd never had a cat before that. But as soon as
really?
Yeah, so I was completely new to. I mean, obviously, I've took it to quite extreme levels in the space of 4 years. It's escalated quite quick.
What made you think to do the foster thing in the first place then?
Well, it was at the time. My partner at the time was really into cats, and she was like, "Oh, can we?" And I was like, "Oh, no, like just responsibility and blah blah." And in the end, she was like twisted my arm, and I said, "Right, well, we'll foster for a week or something."
Right, yeah.
And then she got out of the carrier and I was like, right, okay. And then I became more obsessed than her. And yeah, that was it. And it's just, now, like you say, I couldn't imagine a world where I don't have a cat. It's just, I think it's when you actually become, a cat owner, or you're owned by a cat, aren't you, essentially? That it just changes everything, doesn't it? That your house is different. It just, I don't know. Yeah. I just can't imagine going home and not having a cat there. I just couldn't imagine it.
No, they make it feel like a home. And also I feel like if you talk to someone who's never had cats or doesn't get cats, it's not until you meet a few cats that you realise what the thing is, because they're all so different. That's the thing. People that don't really like cats or think they don't like cats, I think they just have a picture in their head of cats are these kind of standoffish. Every cat is so completely different. Your relationship with each one is so completely unique, I think. Yeah,
no, completely agree. So in terms of Pickle, are you a favourite? Because I've always been the favourite for my cat.
I obviously like to think I am. But there's been a new development recently, which is really distressing, which is we had an old brush that our old cat Ollie was obsessed with, which was like a Moroccan oil hairbrush. It's the spikiest thing. She used to lie on it. Love it. It's like the spikiest, prickliest thing. And I approached Pickle with that once and she was like, get that thing away from me. And we found a brush that she loves, which is one of those kind of massage brushes.
Oh, yeah.
And she is obsessed with it. This is the last few weeks, this obsession. And my boyfriend is the keeper of the brush. And he's become like, I'm brushing her now. And suddenly I feel like he's taking over my favourite title because she runs after him. She runs to find him and get him to brush her all the time now.
You're the favourite, aren't you, Nicky?
Yes.
Yeah. Thing is, if you can find any sort of like little win that to sort of convince the cat, you'll really sort of stick on that, won't you? And really hone in on it.
Definitely. I think Jenny just needs to buy another brush.
That's it. I know.
Yeah, no, I did. I suggested that actually. I
sneak
said
it home and be like,
one, yeah.
I want to get a bigger, spikier brush. Yeah. So obviously, Jane, you're a successful writer as well. I imagine it'd be quite stressful at times, that the creative process and that kind of thing. Has Pickle or any of your other cats, previously, ever kind of helped you in that creative process? Because I find it very calming to be around cats. I don't know about you, but do you find that is Pickle there with you when you're kind of in that creative kind of mode?
She is. She always is, and I kind of find it calming. I used to find it slightly more calming with Ollie because she would just settle in my armpit. I'm a very bad typist. So I type with two fingers. I don't type properly, so I only need to use one finger. So she would sleep in my armpit and I would kind of type. Pickle prefers to just do the kind of sleep across me and the computer thing.
Yeah,
so
that's what my cat
always,
does.
Yeah, not always the most creative thing. But she's definitely a calming presence, definitely.
What, Nicky, why every time I'm on the laptop, like Ruby will just come, is it just an attention-seeking thing or like what is it?
For most cats, it will be an attention-seeking thing because we're stationed in one place and we're focusing on something and they sort of come along and want to take our attention. It's a bit like when you're back on the phone and they come on over, particularly from back in the day when you'd have a phone actually plugged into the wall and it was like stuck in one spot. And then for other cats, it will be the warmth of the laptop as well. That can be part of it. I discovered that somewhere on the laptop there's flight mode because my cat somehow did that and kicked me out of a meeting.
So yeah, Ruby's like an expert on MacBooks. She's knows all the commands that I don't know somehow. Like she wants to like, what have you just done? You've changed all the settings, and she just looks at me as if to say, yeah, and. So Jane, obviously you've mentioned that it's not just cats that you're passionate about, not just cat welfare. It's just animal welfare in general. You've done a lot of work in terms of promoting animal welfare. Like, why is it such an important thing to you?
It's one of those things, isn't it? You just realise that you feel passionate about, and I just think they get such a bad time in the world, generally, animals. And I feel like we'll all turn around in 20 years and think, what were we doing? Like, what were we doing dropping shampoo into rabbits' eyes and thinking that was okay? Or, it's just the fact that they can't speak for themselves. And we've decided, humans, we've all decided that we're in charge. And, if we want to use them for our entertainment or for our cosmetics or, or to eat, in my case, that really bothers me. Then that's okay. And I just don't know who put us in charge, really. So I just feel like you've got to speak up for people that can't, or who can't speak up for themselves. Really. Yeah,
no, I totally agree with you there. I think, it's really interesting to say like who put us in charge. Yeah, do you know what I mean? I know like this when you think about that, and you think, I think when you're around animals, and for me, obviously, cats in particular, it's just they have this kind of aura, and you're just like, I don't know how someone could mistreat something that's so dependent on us as well at the same time. Like obviously they're fiercely independent, but at the same time it's our duty to look after them, isn't it, really, as well? We have to be there and protect them.
It's like a lie that everyone's bought into, that you just go, oh, they don't feel pain the same as us.
Yeah.
You can see that animals feel pain, feel fear, feel affection, all those things. You can see that they can grasp concepts and solve problems. A lot of animals have, as you know, have the same kind of emotional and problem-solving intelligence as like a 3-year-old kid. Well, you wouldn't treat your 3-year-old kid like that.
Yeah.
Exactly. And in some cases, a cat outperforms them.
Yeah. But that's true in it, Nicky, as well. Like, obviously there's still research going into sort of, cat behaviour, and there's so much still to discover about cats, I suppose, isn't there? But there's that kind of myth that sometimes people will kind of peddle where it's like, oh, well, they don't really feel emotions, they don't know what they do, kind of, and people kind of downplay them a little bit, don't they? So do you think that maybe don't give cats enough credit, like generally? I mean, obviously we do, but I mean, you know,
Yeah,
society in general, yeah. Is that a thing?
I think so, because particularly when you meet people that don't like cats, and they're always quite quick to say it, and weirdly they always say things like, "Oh, but I wouldn't hurt one," which, you know, be like,
oh yeah,
yeah, I know, exactly.
thanks.
It's quite strange, isn't it? When you're just like, oh, I wasn't going there with that. And I think for them, they really just can't read cats' faces, and therefore they struggle to really understand the emotional state of cats. And like you say, you've got these preconceived ideas about independence, aloof, etc. But no, cats certainly are emotional beings, and also really have decent cognitive abilities and everything else. And there's new research coming out all the time. There's some fantastic work being done in insects at the moment. And that's really just sort of, you know, blowing the lid on things that people have thought, you know, all the time. Like there's the latest thing I've learned was there was something where is it bees or ants? It's usually one of the two, isn't it, when they're looking at insect research? And they were able to take a plant that was like medicinal and then help another to help them heal and actually heal wounds.
Incredible.
I think that was the
It's just
ants, but
incredible.
still, it was incredible. And obviously with the bees, like, you know, they've been using them to detect explosives in airports and loads of stuff that people aren't aware of.
I think that because people are used to dogs, where you know, I love dogs as well, but dogs are just like, I love you instantly. I've never met before, you're the greatest thing in the world. And one thing I love about cats is you have to earn it. So if your cat loves you, you've earned that love. And I think for a lot of people, that's just too much. They're just like, well, why isn't it? It's just, they're just not friendly. No, you wouldn't go up to someone you didn't know and give them a kiss. So, you know, you've got to put the work in, cats.
Yeah, I mean, when I got Ruby, she'd been handed back by. Originally, she lived with an old lady who passed away, and then she got a family, and then the family had handed her back saying like she wasn't the cat we thought she'd be, which I thought was just like, I don't know, like I just don't know what I think it's quite difficult to go in with expectations, isn't it? Sometimes when you get a cat, because
Everyone does it though.
Yeah.
What's really common is for people to pick the same colour cat as the previous cat and then expect them to have the exact same personality. But as Jane's already pointed out, they're all completely different. So, and then they're really disappointed when they're like, oh, it's not exactly like my old cat. And it's like,
But that's the joy. You've got to find that personality in there, and
yeah,
exactly. It's the same as partners. You pick the same hair-coloured partner, they're not going to have the same personality, are they?
yeah. And also, like, I was told that Ruby'd never be a lap cat, and she's not a full lap cat now, but she will sit on my knee for like extended periods of time. And the first time she did that, I was like, I've just proved you wrong. Do you know what I mean? It was just
You're
because,
the chosen one, Adam.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I always say you never want to be the bridge. You always want the destination.
The
don't you?
destination.
Yeah, absolutely. So a couple more questions about Pickle. Jane, is she an indoor cat or outdoor or?
She's an indoor
Indoor,
cat, yeah. So she came to us as an indoor cat, and I've always been better with indoor cats. Because it's one of the reasons I never had children. I'm so ridiculously overprotective and anxious about these things, and I just feel like in London, I don't know, I'd be following them around, seeing where they were going, trying to stop them jumping over a wall. So yes, she is, but we play with her a lot.
Yeah, no, I think that's something that we've kind of touched on before on the podcast, Nicky, where, you know, because my cat's an indoor cat as well, so there's that kind of need to do that extra bit of, you know, stimulation and play with cats.
Interactive play and feeding enrichment.
Yeah. And then obviously in terms of Pickle, has she got does she get a big fuss made of her? Like, because birthdays, do you celebrate a birthday?
I'll celebrate anything where she's concerned.
Yeah, because this is brilliant. Because I've on this podcast, people have basically, really sort of appreciated the effort that I've put in for my cat. Obviously, my friends in the group chat, they're slightly less impressed by the lengths I go to when it comes to celebrating Ruby's birthday. I make her cakes out of, fresh line caught cod. I've not caught the cod myself. I've drawn a line there, but I'll go and buy the finest produce that I can, and then fashion a little cake, put a little candle in it. Just ridiculous levels. So, Jane, I don't think you're going to let me down on this. Do you go to extremes when it comes to a birthday?
I haven't done that.
No. All right. Okay. Yeah. You'll get there one day. Yeah.
I haven't done that. We got sent. I do a lot of. I'll make her a card. I'll sing to her.
Yeah.
I will take a ridiculous photo of her next to something that says, it's my birthday. we got sent a bowl. I can't remember who, someone sent us a bowl, a kind of beautiful crystal bowl with pickle inscribed on the sides. We were like, she can have that on Christmas Day. It'll be her special bowl. So I put it down on Christmas Day. She was like, because she's used to eating from a raised bowl. We were like, so then I had to stand it. I had to get a little box, put it underneath and stand it on the box. And then she was fine with her special Christmas bowl. And that's that, yeah. So
it's brilliant. Do you do, I mean, I don't think you'd go to the same extreme that I do, Nicky, but do you do anything that's a little bit out there for your cat?
Yes, as we've mentioned before, when it's summer, I feel the need that if he's asleep in one of the rooms, I can't open the blinds and stuff because I want to leave him in the dark. And when it's hot, I'll have the fans on for him as well, so that he's sort of nice and cozy for his all day nap.
It's just ridiculous, isn't it? Absolutely ridiculous. But I love it. So, Jane, before we go on to our regular feature in just a second, have you got anything coming up, current projects you want to kind of give a mention? Are you working on anything new at the minute?
Yeah, well, I'm writing. I'm always writing. So I'm writing away at my book for next year. So that's going okay. But the most exciting thing is that I've got a Swedish musical coming out in September.
Oh, nice.
Wow.
Which is kind of completely random. And every time I say it, I have to think, am I saying that right? Is that really happening? But so I don't know if you remember, you probably do, the band Roxette.
Yeah.
They were kind of huge in the 90s, really, and I guess late 80s, Swedish band. And I got a phone call out the blue my agent got a phone call out the blue from the Malmö Opera House in Sweden to say that they had been trying to develop a musical with Roxette, a kind of jukebox musical with all their hits. And could they base it on one of my books? It was completely randomly out of nowhere, about 2 years ago. And I was just thrilled, basically. So it opens in September.
Amazing.
I know, it's been a really kind of crazy, mad and exciting process. They're rehearsing at the moment. They've just started rehearsing with the orchestra and everything. And obviously the hope is Roxette were kind of, they were huge everywhere apart from North America, really. Massive in South America, big in Europe. So the hope is obviously that it will go places and do stuff. So yeah, that's the next thing that's happening, which is super exciting.
Yeah, amazing. Now, before we do move on to the second part of the podcast, one thing that does happen regularly on Cat's Got Your Tongue is all our guests are asked the question, do they have a specific voice they use when they address the cat? Like, do you have, when I speak to Ruby, I speak to her like she is my child, but I speak to her in a way that I would if I had a kid. And it's kind of like, and I'm always like, Ruby, it's just ridiculous. Like, if my mates saw me, they'd be like, Adam, what are you doing? But I don't care. And I think this podcast is like the safe space to kind of, share that. So do you have like a little, do you speak in your normal voice, or do you have a pickle voice?
I have more of a tone than a voice.
Yeah.
So I do that really annoying thing. I kind of narrate her what she's doing to her a lot. So I was like, oh, big stretch. Big yawn. Oh, she's tired. Are you tired? I was like, who am I talking to? What am I doing? I am a bit of a narrator.
Yeah, I honestly,
look at her.
Yeah, I honestly just basically, I just commentate on every movement she makes, and as if everything she does is the best thing I've ever seen as well.
Yeah, absolutely. The best thing a cat's ever done. Look at that yawn.
Yeah, I love it. Brilliant. Right, we're going to take a little pause for a second here. Jane, you're going to stay with us because next on Cat's Got Your Tongue, myself, Nicky and Jane are going to be going through the tales about your cats in Your Cat's Tales. That's on the way next. Welcome back to Cat's Got Your Tongue, and now it is time for Your Cat's Tales. This is the part where we get to hear from you. So anything from your cat dramas to your cat birthdays or any other cat-related questions, we are here to help and hopefully share some of our cat-related wisdom. Before we get to list the questions, Jane, have you got any cat-related questions that you've always kind of had? Anything you want to ask Nicky? Now you've got a, cat's protection, cat behaviourist here.
Well, no, not about cats in general, but I did want to ask about Pickle's new nighttime habits.
Okay.
Whether you've got any advice. So she has, as many cats do, I think, likes to come and about 3 o'clock in the morning, jump all over me, pull my hair, all of that. And I, because of her food obsession, I thought, well, I'll put a tiny snack in an automated feeder and that will pop open because maybe she wants food. So that will pop open at like 3 every morning and maybe that will stop her. So I did that for a while and I realised that what she was doing was she would go and eat that and then she'd come up to tell me about it. or ask where her second course was. So gradually, I thought it was so clever. Gradually, after over weeks and weeks and weeks, I moved it slightly later, slightly later, slightly later. So it now goes off at 5:10 in the morning, which is about when I would be getting up anyway because I'm a terrible sleeper. And that worked for 3 months. She would leave us to sleep all night. 5:11, she'd pop up, wake me up, I'd get up. It was all fine. And we went away for a night the other night. And since then, she's back to her old 3 o'clock in the morning, hair pulling, poking, meowing, rolling around on me. I just wondered if there's anything else I can do to kind of calm that nighttime behavior.
That's really tricky, especially because you've already done like the main one, which is to use the automated feeder. I know some people that literally have like staggered automated feeders as well. So
I thought about it.
Yeah, and also particularly if you like have them in different areas of the house, so they're not just next to each other. They have to go like, hunt it out. And particularly maybe even if you did it where you move them around, and she gets used to the idea of having to go hunt for it.
Okay.
And you didn't have to have very much in there at all, just enough to be like, ooh, the novelty of it. And actually, if you did, change things around a bit, sometimes that could actually have a bit of like a jackpot kind of, effect on her of being like, oh, this is really exciting. The other things are like blackout blinds to really try and block out all the light. There's potential, for that. And I was going to say trying to ignore them, but the list you've already given of things that she does, I was like, oh, that's going to be really, really tough to try and ignore. And
I put a pillow over my head and a little paw comes in and just grabs my hair.
I know. You got cats that get the claw and they just put it up your nose, and it's so hard. But equally, if you shut them out, then they meow and they like claw at the door and the carpet. So it's really challenging. So I think, different feeders and things like that sit around the house. And another one is if she's interested in play at all, there are actually nighttime style toys out there where they're like, the one I'm thinking of is like a little soft ball. I say it's soft so that when they bat it around, it doesn't make a hard bouncing sound. But they've also got patches on that glow in the dark because they can't see in pitch black, but they can see, obviously something that's glowing in the dark. And then that helps them to sort of encourage them to go and play by themselves.
Oh, that sounds good too. Yeah, thank you.
So hopefully that could help out a little bit. But I totally know what you mean. Like my cat does that, and she won't stop until she gets her own way.
It's so hard. Some of them are so persistent.
It's really, really tough.
None of my other cats have ever done it, so it's all new.
Which is great.
Yeah, it's really tough. So we've received a message from Cheryl, who is a listener of the podcast, and she's thinking about fostering. So something which we've touched on already in this episode, where obviously Jane, Pickle was a failed foster because you had to keep her, and same with me with Ruby. But she's already got a cat called the Magnificent Douglas, which is one of my favourite cat names ever. And Cheryl says, I've got a question about cat fostering. I've seen some adverts and I'm really interested, but I've already got a cat. And I wanted to ask if it was appropriate for me to bring in a foster cat for a short period of time, or would that be too upsetting for Douglas or for a potential foster cat? So really, I just wanted to know, can you foster cats if you've already got a cat? Thank you so much. Love the podcast. That does say that, by the way. I've not added that in.
Which is always nice.
Yeah. So it's a bit of a difficult situation now, isn't it, Nicky?
So just to unpick some of it. So the short answer to can you foster with cats protection, if you've already got a cat, yes, you can. But then the nuances of it. So will it stress out the foster cats? Well, we do carefully place cats across the network. So that would, the personalities of those foster cats would come into consideration. On the whole, they're fine because they're kept separate from the resident cats. As to Douglas, it really depends on his personality as to how well he's going to cope. So normally when people foster a cat in their homes, it's either in like a separate bedroom, for example, that's kept, the door shut and away from the resident. Or they might have like pens that look a bit like a cattery style pens in the back garden. Again, though, the resident cat could potentially go up to it. So it depends how they feel around other cats. My cat, for example, is very territorial. So I know for a fact that he's not going to cope with that scenario. Whereas I know a lot of other cats that would probably be absolutely fine. But it also be one of those things potentially that she could try it, see how she gets on, see how Douglas gets on. And then take it from there. Particularly for indoor fostering, there's not there's a big commitment in that sense.
Yeah, and you've worked with Lifeline on this before, haven't you, Nicky? Do you want to kind of tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so Lifeline is a service that Cats Protection offer where we're providing temporary fostering services for people that are escaping domestic abuse, and so we will foster these cats. usually for sort of 6 to 8 months, depending on the person's situation. And it's different though, because in that scenario, you can't have your own cat or other pets because we tend to do whole house fostering. So they have access to the whole house. But it's a really, really rewarding service, and you get to do cute little photos and updates that, make their way through very securely to the original owner, so that they can, it really gives them hope as they're, getting out of that situation. And then we give their cats back once they're into the, other accommodation, that they can accept their cat back.
Yeah, and there's more details online, cats.org.uk. People can go there if they want to use that service. In terms of fostering, Jane, is Pickle quite territorial? Do you think she likes being the only cat?
It's hard to tell, isn't it, if you haven't seen them interacting with other cats? But my feeling is she's so happy and she's so secure, and she came from such a chaotic environment that I think it probably would be a mistake to bring another cat in. I think she's sort of finally got her one-on-one attention that in my head she probably always wanted. So yeah, I don't feel like, it's hard to know, I don't feel like she's territorial, but I know she is kind of obsessed with us and she wants to be with us all the time, and I kind of wouldn't want to disrupt that too much with her specifically.
Yeah, I'm a bit like that. I think as well is that, I think obviously what Nicky mentioned about temperament is obviously quite key, but I think as well, if your previous cat has come from quite a difficult situation, I feel like it's probably similar with you, Jane, with Pickle, with me and Ruby. I've kind of got it. I've got it in such a nice place for her now that I'd hate to, in some way, destabilize it, or do you know what I mean? But it's really difficult, isn't it? But to kind of know when it's.
I think you just have to, your cat, and you just have to judge it on that, don't you? Because I think with Ollie and with Colin that we had before, we could have probably done it.
Yeah.
I just think with Pickle and her particular kind of circumstances, it's not right.
Yeah, but maybe Cheryl there, if she's kind of mentioned Douglas, maybe in her mind she's thinking it could work because it's even a possibility at the minute.
She must think there's something in Douglas that wouldn't mind too much.
Yeah, to even kind of suggest it. So Nicky, a bit of an unusual question for us, this one, and not a question coming in from our listeners. It's something actually your team has been asked recently, and we thought, we've got to stick this on the podcast. And someone basically says, why does my cat stare into my soul whilst I'm on the toilet?
We get everything asked in our team.
I mean, the fact is, this is like your team's job to answer these questions, essentially. Like, explain that. Like, why? And
exactly.
We've all been there. Do you know what I mean? It is, I know, as soon as I read that question, I was like, I need an answer actually to that. Yeah.
And also, like we've always said before, this is a safe space to ask any question you want,
exactly.
And we will do our best. So yes, there's lots of different things. Firstly, some cats, that's just their face. Like they just have a kind of face that does this, and and that's just who they are. There's a lot of people out there, and I hope that some of you guys are listening, where they do actually go to toilet with their cat. And it's actually a lot more common than everybody thinks. I mean, mostly because I've spoken to a lot of cat people now. So a lot of people have a litter tray in the bathroom, but I know people that literally both toilet at the same time.
What?
The original question of like,
that's ridiculous. How are you synchronising it?
Yeah,
I mean, I think the cat's probably. First? I think the human's normally first, and then the cat's
right.
in.
I was going to say, you can start giving each other a nod, and then
there's people that have got the other way around happening. Like I say, it's pretty common that I've discovered. But also, being back to the laptop. If you're sat on the toilet, you are stationed one spot, but you're also not hugely distracted doing something else. So you're sitting duck, if you like, for providing attention and fuss and anything else.
So it's almost like the cat's like, right, move now. Like, come on, get back to give me attention.
Well, no, I think some people, the cat will be just winding around your legs whilst you're sat on the toilet.
Yeah.
Because you can't go elsewhere. You're busy, and then the cat's like, I've got you now.
I tell you what, the last cat's tale this week has been sent to us from Joe in Shropshire. And this is deep. This is deep. And I'd like to get both of you to give me some views on this one, because I think it's incredible, it's profound. And Joe simply asks, what is the meaning of life for a cat? It's interesting, isn't it?
I couldn't even answer that for a human, to be honest. So
never mind for a cat, yeah. But what I mean, for me, I'd like to say it'd be something like really profound, but I feel like it'd just be like open that tin. Like, do you know what I mean? Or like, it'd be something like, I want some more food. Yeah. Or, just, I don't know, but obviously, Nicky, you might be able to shed a bit more light on this. Like, what do you think, if a cat could answer that, do you think it's something to do with wanting that love and being cared for, or do you think it's more survival? I don't know. It's such an interesting one.
I mean, if we're going to bring in some research now,
go on.
On the human side, you've got the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's like a pyramid, and at the bottom you've got your base needs of like sort of food and water and shelter and stuff, and then it goes up to self-actualization, which I don't think cats actually have. But I think I like what you're saying about sort of this love and security and everything else, that they've probably got to a point they've got everything they could possibly need beneath that, and they're just happy purring machines. So, yeah, I mean, if I had to sum up, I'd like to say like love is a cardboard box. So I'd like to say like the meaning of life is a cardboard box, and that keeps cats happy,
Yeah, I probably. Do you know what? That's probably a really good way of putting it, to be fair. Yeah, I think
inside the box, not outside the box. I feel like that's like the kind of philosophy that cats would have.
Yeah, absolutely. Or they probably just like look at you and then just walk off before answering.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it for this week. Jane, thanks again for joining us on Cat's Got Your Tongue. It's been so good to kind of chat to you and find out more about Pickle and just kind of see how much passion, enthusiasm you have for cats in general. It's been great to have you on.
Have you seen my wallpaper, by the way?
I have.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
It was my childhood wallpaper when I was like 7, 8, 9. And I managed to track it down last year, and I managed to track down a bit of the fabric that had it, and I got a roll made up but yeah, fancy cats.
Oh, that's amazing. Have you got loads of like cat ornaments and sort of cat, like
I've
around the house?
not kind of to a crazy extent, but yeah, I've got a bit of, got a bit of cat stuff going on.
I've got it to a crazy extent in my house.
Useful. What can you do?
But yeah, honestly, Jane, thank you so much for coming on. We've loved having you on Cat's Got Your Tongue. And that's it for this week. As I said, thanks again for listening to Cat's Got Your Tongue in association with Cats Protection. Thanks as always for your expertise, Nicky.
Thanks.
And thanks again to Jane Fallon for joining us. And remember, hit subscribe so you never miss an episode. Tell your friends with cats and your friends who love cats about us. Share the podcast, give us a review. And if you want to get in touch and share your very own cat's tale, you can do pod@cats.org.uk, or you can send us a text, or even better, you can send us a voice note on WhatsApp now, 07824 551 076, 07824 551 076. And we'll see you next time on Cat's Got Your Tongue. So did you know that by signing up to become a Cats Protection member, you'll get 24-hour access via telephone, live chat or video call to the qualified veterinary nurses at VetPhone that can help answer any medical concerns that you might have about your cat whenever they arise. And you'll also receive the Cat Magazine, regular newsletters, a personal membership card and a pin badge. Plus, you'll be helping Cats Protection make a better life for cats. You can sign up today at cats.org.uk/membership.